to Crime and Court. My name is Heather, and this is episode, as you can see from the thumbnail, 26, Jury Seating and Bombshell Witnesses. So we are just on the eve of trial. I mean, really, we have 4 more jurors that need to go through the selection process. So, or at least, they need to seat 4 more jurors, and that's going to take place on, or at least start to take place on Monday, and we may possibly have opening statements start on Tuesday or Wednesday next of this coming week. So before we get really into the trial, I thought it would be a good idea to go over the witness list, and also we're going to talk a little bit about jury seating and a little bit about the buffer zone too. So I've got a lot to cover in this episode, and I'm going to be flip-flopping all around. So first of all, let's dive in. All right, please hit that like button, subscribe, and all those YouTube-y things. I really appreciate it, and I just appreciate you for watching. So thank you for being here. All right, so first we're going to talk about the state's witness list. So the Commonwealth's witness list, as you can see, number 1, Trooper Proctor, and then 2 is Yuri Buchanan. So those are the 2 lead investigators. Trooper Proctor was the lead. Buchanan was assisting, I don't know, so he was there with Proctor most of the time in the investigation. Very, very involved in investigating, and now, or in the investigation, or the cover-up, I should say. It wasn't really an investigation, it was more of a cover-up. All right, so Trooper Proctor, Yuri Buchanan, and then if you look down the list, it's like all Massachusetts State Police, and then Canton Police. So Officer Surratt, well, here, back up. So these names aren't very familiar to us. These are all troopers. They might have been in some police reports, but they're not main characters. Next, we got Lieutenant Brian Tully from the Massachusetts State Police. He is the head of Trooper Proctor and Yuri Buchanan. So anything that happened in the investigation, any paperwork, any reports, anything that happened in the investigation of the loss of John O'Keefe's life, anything that Trooper Proctor and Yuri Buchanan put forth would have been seen by Brian Tully. So everything's on his head, but really it's on the Norfolk District Attorney, because he chose to go through with these charges that are bogus. But anyways, we'll get to that. So Tully, and then Nicholas Guarino, he is the one that decided that he's the one that did the phone information. I believe he did some phone data. He's the one that said, oh no, we didn't find anything on Jen McCabe's phone out of the ordinary. It was perfectly on the up and up. And then also, no, we didn't find any steps from John, the steps from John, they just, I don't know how they explain that away. They just say it's wrong, when he was already at the house at that time, when people are saying, though, that he didn't do those steps. Apple is like the most reliable data, one of the most reliable things that we can look at. But anyway, so he contests the steps, he contests, that John was even there in the house, and he says, the how long to die in the cold Google search never happened until 6 in the morning. Then we have some more Massachusetts State Police. Then we've got Officer Surratt and Officer Mullaney, Officer Good, and Lank. Those names all should be familiar. Those names all arrived on the scene. They interviewed people. Michael Lank, as we recently found out in a court hearing. Sorry, my hair is driving me nuts. It gets tangled so much, so if you see me like playing with it a lot, it's just because like all I have to do is breathe and it tangles up, so it's weird. But anyways, okay. So totally forgot where he was. Officer CvrUp, Mulaney, Good, and Link. They all showed up early on in the very beginning. CvrUp was the first one actually on the scene, and then I think it was Good or Mulaney. It was one of the two, and they all, I think, took Jen's word, but they're gonna have things to say about how Karen was reacting that morning when they found John. Michael Lank, remember, is a good longtime friend of the Alberts, as many of these people in this town happen to be. Let's scroll down. We've got this is all police, law enforcement. I mean, everyone on their list is law enforcement. What are they going to do? Did every single one of these people have some kind of interaction with Karen or something? Because none of these names have ever really been up for question. So I don't know. All right. Are you seeing my mouse? You're seeing my mouse. Okay. I'm not sure if it's on my screen or your screen. All right. So this is interesting. So she is not law enforcement. This Heather Maxson. She's on both the defense and the state's witness lists. And she is the ex-girlfriend of Ryan Nagel. So Ryan Nagel showed up at the house because Julie Nagel called, asked for a ride. He shows up right after Karen Reed pulls up, and he claims, he never saw John, and but he did see her tail light was intact, the lights were working, and everything was on the up and up. He just saw Karen sitting there with her hands 10 and 2 staring out the windshield. And I believe she was just waiting to hear back from John at that point, whether he was going to stay or whether they were going to go home, whether she should drive him home. So Heather Maxson is the ex-girlfriend of Ryan. So Ryan showed up, and his sister Julie comes out and says, yeah, anyways, forget that. I don't want to ride home. Why don't you guys come to the party? So she tries to convince them to come in. They say no. And then finally Julie Nagel says, well, I'll just I'll just sleep over here tonight. I'm not gonna, I don't need a ride. I'm just gonna stay here. And then an hour and a half later, she gets a ride home from Jennifer McCabe. And what's that about? We don't know. So anyways, Heather Maxson is the ex-girlfriend of Ryan Nagel. She was in the car when all of that was happening. And Julie Nagel, I was like, what's her face? Decided not to take the ride. And then she was being weird of trying to get them to come in. So Heather is a witness on that end. More Canton Fire Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. So we've got Irene Scordi Bello. We've gone through the paperwork. We know that name. She is the medical examiner for Norfolk County, I guess. I don't know. And they, her and this other doctor, Renee Stonebridge, they're going to be trying to convince the jury that John's many injuries did come from Karen's car when they clearly don't look like it. So that's who those two are. Timothy Nuttall, I don't know. More Canton Fire. These are all the people that showed up on the scene. All right, so now we're getting to people that are just lay people. Oh, Katie McLaughlin. She actually gave the statement in the beginning saying that Karen was saying that, did I hit him? Like, asking the question, did I hit him? So she made a statement about that in the very beginning, and then she kind of disappeared. So that'll be interesting to bring her back in and see what she has to say. Anyway, so we've got Jennifer McCabe, Allison McCabe, which is, I believe, Jennifer and Matt's daughter. So Matthew McCabe, Jennifer McCabe, Allison McCabe, Carrie Roberts, Kurt Roberts. Remember, Carrie and Jennifer were out with Karen driving around to find John, and they were the ones that found John with her. And then we have Paul O'Keefe and Aaron O'Keefe, which is, I know Paul is the father. I believe Aaron is the mother's name. And they will be on the stand for the Commonwealth. Then we have juveniles with the initials KF and PF. Those are the niece and nephew of John, who he was raising. Then we have Michael Camerano and Catherine Camerano. These two, well, I don't know about Catherine. I'm assuming she was, because why would they call her? I know Michael was out with them drinking that night at the bars. I don't believe he went with them to the waterfall, though. I'm not sure. We'll have to find out in testimony and find out if Catherine was there. I'm assuming so, because otherwise why would they call her if they get to her? All right, Brian Higgins. That's going to be an interesting one, because we know he destroyed his phone. We know lots of things, that he went to go work at 1:30 in the morning after drinking, after learning that, well, no. He left he didn't know John had been out there yet. Well, supposedly he didn't know. Anyways, so he went to work at 1:30 in the morning to go do paperwork, he says, at the Canton Police Department. So that'll be interesting to hear Brian Higgins, hear from him. Brian Albert, homeowner. Nicole Albert, homeowner. Brian Albert Jr. is the son of Brian and Nicole. They are on the Commonwealth's side. It'll be interesting to hear from them, especially with the Commonwealth asking questions, because why didn't they come out to the scene? And they're just going to say they slept through it. There were other neighbors that came out and actually were woken up by all the commotion. So for them to say that they didn't hear it, obviously it's a cop-out. All right, who else do we have? The doctors from Good Samaritan Medical Center, the medical director, UC Davis Veterinary Lab. So they're going to probably try to say that those bites are not from a dog, or those injuries were not from a dog bite. However, we have no idea, because they never took samples. They never took swabs of his arm, the injuries on his arm that look like dog bites. They never took samples of. It may be possible but his clothes were also treated very poorly in the line or the chain of custody, because there's pictures of them crumpled up on the floor hours after John had been brought to the hospital. So anyways, so that's the veterinary lab. The Bodie technology, that's going to be the hair that they think they found on the bumper. And we don't know if all of it's going to come in, because recently, the reports haven't been brought back, and we just talked about this in recent episodes, is that the reports from that hair, the sample, wouldn't be back until April 16th, and that was when trial started. Technically, trial starts the day you start jury selection. So even though day one will be, opening statements, but technically the trial starts the minute you start jury selection. But anyways, so they're bringing in this a couple Bodie technology experts to, I guess, claim that this is the hair, if they're allowed to bring it in, which we know Canoni is going to allow it, because she doesn't deny them much, and she always denies our motions. All right, so we also have Julie Albert, who is married to Christopher Albert. They are the parents of Colin Albert, so all three of those will be very interesting to hear from. Was Colin in the house? It's interesting, and we have some info on that. So, all right, so Ryan Nagel, I told you who he is. Tristan Morris is the boyfriend of Caitlin Albert. So Caitlin Albert is also the son of Chris and Julie, and they they put the wrong names in reports and things on purpose so that it would not be traceable to the people that were really involved. But so like in police reports, they referred to the daughter of Chris and Nicole as Caitlin, or I'm sorry, as Tristan and not as Caitlin. So like they messed up names on purpose and they interchanged last names and first names and whatnot. Gretchen Voss she's pressed, but somehow she has managed to get herself on here. I have no idea why. All right, so the Office of Alcohol Testing. So that's going to be the people that did the methylation of her breath and the alcohol, the ethanol testing or whatever. And then they decided that, through time, some kind of formula, they figured that they say that she was a 0.08, which technically is like your legal limit. You probably would get a DUI if you're right on that. And then what was I going to say? So then they did like a formula to see what she would have been, 6 hours later or whatever before the test was taken, because there was a lot of time had lapsed. So they had to figure out, what her thing is, her blood alcohol level is. Why can't I think? And they came up with a really high differential, and it just seems really wild. Like she was not that drunk. Come on. She wouldn't have been standing up. She's a tiny little petite thing. I don't think she was drinking at all. I think she was drinking, but I don't think she was drinking that much. And she said like maybe 4 drinks. So maybe it was like 5 or 6 at best. But I mean, I think she was watering them down, or I don't know. Anyways, at least we don't know, because the PCA, or one of the original like charging documents for Karen, made her out to be like this huge blush that she had like 10 drinks in the span of like 2 hours. She'd be on the floor. I'd be on the floor, like passed the F out. But anyways, okay. So where were we? So Sarah Levinson, she was one of the people that was in the house. And she was taken home by, what's her face? Jen McCabe. She was dropped off by Jen McCabe. Some more Massachusetts State Police. More individuals. I don't know who all these are, but I'm going to go through some of them. So we've got Brian. I'm looking at the wrong. Brian Loughran, who is Lucky Loughran, the plow driver. So he's going to testify that he did not see a body at 2 a.m, and he did not see anything out of the ordinary other than a Ford Focus parked in that same position. So that's what he saw at 2 a.m. That's what he's going to testify to, but he's on the Commonwealth's list. So I don't know. Next, we've got this Richard D'Antuono, something like that. He is the friend that was driving Brian Nagel and Heather Maxson in the car to go pick up Julie Nagel. So he was the friend driving. It was his Ford F-150. I don't know who the rest of these are. Juliana Nagel, obviously, we know who she is. She's Ryan's sister. This Nicholas Kolikathis, never mind. Repeat that. Or don't repeat that. Backtrack. Rewind that. Nicholas K. and Karina K. They were out with them drinking that night, and I imagine some of these other people might have been too, or they were on the Aruba trip. One of them I know was, I think, the Aruba trip, but I don't know which one here. But one of them is going to testify that Karen was such a bitch on the Aruba trip, or whatever. I don't know. So what? Being a bitch doesn't make you someone who ends lives. All right, so now we're going to look at whoops. The defense witness list. Okay. All right, so Brian Albert, homeowner, Caitlin Albert, Christopher Albert, Colin Albert, Julie Albert, Kevin Albert, Nicole Albert. These are all on the defense list for witnesses to call. So if the state doesn't call them, then they have every right to call them. So basically all of the Alberts. Then we come to this Michael Wagner. Actually, first I think on the list is this Lori Cahill. So let's go to Lori Cahill. These people that I have highlighted, I'm going to give you a little more info on. So where'd my water go? I need to freshen up here. All right, that's good. Okay, so this Lori Cahill. This is a blog post that Turtle Boy did. It says 3 days ago from today, so I just did this. I pulled it off of his blog today. All right, so Lori Cahill from Worcester, Massachusetts. I hope I'm not butchering these names and places. All right, so Lori was working at Gillette Stadium for the Army-Navy game in December when Michael Proctor allegedly told her that Karen Reed was 100% guilty and said, "You don't know who I am," and told her that he knew things that she didn't before predicting that the woman would be made a fool of in a few months. So this will all make sense in 1 second. We're going to read through this explanation, this description of an incident that happened. All right, so this woman says, "Scott Antonio, sorry for the novel, but here you go. It was 10 minutes past kickoff, so the line was very crowded. The line was very crowded. Him. What's with the button?" Referring to my Free Karen Reed button. "Me, in support of Karen Reed, the girlfriend of a Boston police officer that was framed for his unaliving when he was found unalive in the front lawn of another Boston police officer. Crime scene disaster, altered reports, Canton Police, Norfolk DA, MSP, you should check it out." Him, "She's 100% guilty." Me, "Not a chance." Him, "You shouldn't be wearing that. Take that off." Who is he to tell her she can't wear a pin that says Free Karen Reed? Me, no. Him, "I know things about this that you don't." Me, "You don't know who I am." Him, "You don't know who I am." Me, "You asked me about it." Him, "You shouldn't be wearing that here." Me, "I'm fine, thanks. I know what I'm doing." Him, "You shouldn't be wearing that." Me, "I'm good." Now he's walking away and yelling back at me. Him, "You'll be made a fool of in a couple of months." Me, "We'll see." Him, "I know you will. And I'll see you then." Me, "I'll remember you." Hi, "Yes, you will." Then he walked away mumbling to the person he was with. Me, "Free Karen Reed." How great was that? A little interaction. So I enjoyed that very much. Just picturing that in his head, wanting to explode, getting all mad like veiny, because he's a veiny bald guy. All right, so Paul Mikowski, I don't know. Leslie Bernstein, it might be familiar, but I can't think of who that might be. Some Dighton police, former police chief of Canton, Kenneth Berkowitz, the one who just magically found the taillight piece like 5 days or something after the incident. And he just happened to be driving down the street and he just happened to see a piece of taillight out of the corner of his eye while he was driving. So believable. We got Yuri Buchanan on here. Oh, we got to backtrack and do the Michael Wagner and Cheryl Waugh. So those two, who are they? Wagner and Waugh were Canton residents who were married until filing for divorce in January of 2022. Wagner now lives in Foxborough, while Cheryl appears to have married a woman in 2023 and now lives in Canton right near Chris Albert. Ooh, little juicy side story going on here. All right, so sources tell me that Wah was brutally attacked by Chloe prior to John O'Keefe's unaliving and had to go to the ER. The defense was able to obtain this information after filing a motion to obtain Canton animal control records, which the Commonwealth for some reason opposed. Surprise, surprise. And they would have hit it completely if the defense hadn't gone out and gotten them. All right, so attorney Greg Henning, who represents Brian Albert's family, stated in open court that the dog had no history of attacking human beings. Here, this is saying, note the prose and dramatic language destroy evidence extremely troubling, unquestionably further support, and focus in particular on the characterization of evidence, a reported violent skin-piercing incident, by saying violent skin-piercing incident 4 months after John O'Keefe's unaliving. The defense is asking the reader to conclude that the dog in question has a history of attacking human beings and that it was sent away because it was violent toward people. As with other defense assertions, this is not true. Mr. Albert's dog escaped from a fenced yard and went after a neighbor's pet 4 months after John O'Keefe's unaliving. There are witnesses to the incident. Oh, I'm sure there's witnesses. They probably include Jen McCabe, Matt McCabe, more Alberts, all of those people that I don't believe a word they say anyway, so it means nothing to me that they witnessed this ordeal. Okay, so when the Alberts asked the neighbor how they could reassure her, she expressed an ongoing concern for walking her dog. After difficult family conversations, the Alberts chose to rehome the dog but remained in touch with the new owner. They remain in touch with her to this day. I doubt that. All right. So in the context of a defense motion accusing an innocent person of unaliving, the phrasing here is entirely intentional. If this is what the defense means by good faith belief, the court should be cautious about relying on any defense assertion. Moreover, the Commonwealth respectfully moves that in response to the defendant's motion to inspect and copy these records, that the defendant be ordered to disclose the names of the investigators she intends to share with the records with. So as part of their, I guess, objection. Here's Chloe. You can kind of see her head. I think that's the only picture we really have of her. So, what is this? Oh, here. Oh, Henning is... Oh, okay, so this guy is their... Brian Albert's attorney. And that's what I was confused. Like, who the heck is Henning? All right, so either Henning lied or his client lied to him. So either Henning lied when he said that there were no dog bite or biting incidents of other humans. So either Henning lied or the Alberts lied to him. Likely the latter. It goes to the credibility of the Commonwealth's witnesses that they were caught in so many lies. It also shows that Chloe had a history of biting human beings, which is absolutely, completely relevant since John O'Keefe was found with dog bites on his arm, or at least injuries that look consistent with dog bites. We will never know for sure because of the fact that they didn't test. Who's next on here? Oh, okay. So let's keep looking through here. So we come up to this Richard D. Antuono again, and Heather Maxon also is on the list. And whoops. So let's read what Turtle Boy has to say about them. So Maxon is Ryan Nagel's ex-girlfriend, and D'Antuono is his friend. D'Antuono was driving the truck where Maxon and Nagel were passengers and idled his truck directly behind Karen Reed's Lexus outside of the 34 Fairview Road. If either of these witnesses testifies that they saw John O'Keefe go inside the house, it will be game over. Sources say their testimony is almost identical to Nagel's. They saw Karen Reed alone inside her car with the interior lights on. O'Keefe was nowhere to be seen and her tail light was not damaged. The Commonwealth has also put both of them on their witness list. All right, so they're on the Commonwealth's witness list. Whoops. And additionally, we've got Brian Albert, Brian Higgins. So a lot of people that are on both lists, because I mean, let's face it, we gotta examine these individual witnesses that were there, and I cannot wait. I will be popping popcorn and sitting pretty watching while either Alan Jackson or David Unetti dig into some of these witnesses. All right, so Brian Higgins, again, we've got the Karina and Nicholas K that were at the bar with them drinking that night. We have another veterinary lab technician from UC Davis, I'm sure to combat anything that the Commonwealth's veterinary technician is going to say. We've got Michael Lank on here, Brian Lucky Laughlin, the plow driver, Heather Maxon again. Okay, so Allison McCabe, Jennifer McCabe, Matt McCabe, we got them on both lists. Lance Mello, I don't know who that is. I don't think it's in any relation to Ken Mello, who's prosecuting. He's the special prosecutor in the Aiden Reed case. There's a bunch of Mello names that I've heard, but I don't know if they're related. Okay, so then we also have Ryan Nagel, Steve Nelson. I don't know, he's from the Norfolk District Attorney's Office. Steve Nelson, that's interesting. We have a Holly Price. I'm assuming that's an E. Holly Price from Google, who's probably going to tell us how Google searches work, and that you can't open a window at 6:30 a.m. and have it like revert to 2:30 a.m. That makes absolutely no sense. Trooper Kathleen Prince, that's interesting. She took some police reports in the beginning too, with Trooper Proctor. Elizabeth Proctor, who is the wife of Trooper Proctor, so that's going to be good, because remember, we had images of Jen McCabe and Nicole Albert in the Proctor household with their cars. Individual people around town took pictures of the cars sitting in front of Trooper Proctor's house. So you're witnesses in a case that Trooper Proctor is the lead investigator on. So also Trooper Proctor they want to call. So I'm sure the state will, but if they don't, then the Commonwealth, I mean, the defense can even call them back if they need to. Some Canton Fire Police. Who's next on our list? Oh, Kelly Dever. Did I find her? I don't think I ever found her name on this list, but Kelly Dever is Kelly Dever, Boston Police Department. She's an officer that was working as a Canton police officer on the 29th of 2022. There is radio transmission purportedly from the morning that John O'Keefe's body was discovered of Lieutenant Paul Gallagher calling her and saying that an unnamed Canton PD lieutenant wanted to see what address on Fairview Road first responders had arrived. She told him it was 32 Fairview Road. So I'm going to play a clip of this in a second, but just to reiterate, so this woman working at the Canton Police Department, and there are these other individuals. Paul Gallagher ends up calling her to say that an unnamed Canton PD lieutenant wanted to see the address. An unnamed Canton PD lieutenant. Maybe Kevin Albert? A brother? I don't know. But someone, an unnamed PD lieutenant. Anyway, so we're going to listen to this radio transmission. It was on Sean El Jefe McDonough's Twitter. He posted it on there. So let's actually go to here. Oh, hold on. I had you muted. Here we go. Let's get, and it wasn't at the beginning. Here we go.
Canton Police Officer Denver Police recording.
Kelly, it's Paul. What's the address of that scene? Is it by his house or is it on Fairview? Because the lieutenant's asking me what's going on Fairview.
Yep, it's 32 Fairview Road.
Okay, so it's not even his house. Okay, perfect.
Let's play that again. So the house is actually 34 Fairview Road. That is where the incident took place. I think Jen McCabe gave them the wrong address on purpose. So let's listen to that again.
Okay, so it's not even his house. Okay, perfect.
It's not even his house.
Okay, so it's not even.
Whoops.
Okay, so it's not even. Is it on Fairview? Because the lieutenant's asking me what's going on Fairview.
Yep, it's 32 Fairview Road.
Okay, so it's not even his house. Okay, perfect. All right, I'm on my way. Thank you.
All right, sounds good. Bye.
What do you guys think about that? They gave the wrong address. They tried to make it out to be 32 Fairview Road, and it was not. All right, so interesting there. So that takes Officer Kelly Dever off our witness list. I can't remember where she was up here, but she's on here somewhere. All right, so Ryan Nagel, the Google person. So that was Kathleen. Was it Kathleen Pierce? No, that was Kelly Dever. I'm sorry, because these are all out of order and it's annoying. So I just want to make sure that I'm getting all the people. Well, let's do this. Okay, so Trooper Michael Proctor, Carrie Roberts, again, Stephen Rich. So some Boston police officers. That's interesting. It's the first time we're getting Boston police in here, because John was Boston police, and so was or is Brian. Also here is the Mark Lapolito the Lapolito brothers, Mark and Alfredo. We read through some of their paperwork. It was pretty interesting about Michael Lenk getting into some physical altercations with them, arresting them, using his abuse of power, biting someone, all that good stuff. Lieutenant Brian Tully, again, so he's on here. Courtney Proctor, she's on here. We'll come back to her. Tristan Morris. I don't know who these people are. So anyone who's highlighted here, we're going to get to. So Ashley Bell of Canton, Mike Rushworth, the Norfolk County District Attorney Michael Morrissey. We cannot wait to see him on the stand. Thomas Beatty and Aaron Beatty, Megan Mariani, and John O'Keefe Sr. Oh, I'm sorry. So Paul is the brother. I knew that. Paul's the brother. John O'Keefe Sr. is the father. So when I said in the Commonwealth list, where were they? Paul and Aaron were on it. here, Paul and Aaron. Paul's the brother. Aaron might be the mother. I'm not sure. If anybody knows for sure, please let us know in the comments below. Where was I? So John O'Keefe Sr., he's been in court to all these hearings with Paul and the Alberts, and he's been on their side the whole time. And now, just now, we're seeing he didn't go to the last hearing, so he wasn't there to like be on the wrong side, the McCabe side or the McAlbert side. But now he's actually on the witness list for the defense, so that's very interesting. I wonder, he had a close relationship with Karen. Out of all of the O'Keefes, besides John, obviously, he was the closest with Karen. I heard they went to church together. Like, they really had a tight relationship, and he was sympathetic and towards her. So we'll see what he has to say. And then we've got forensic pathologist, an expert in biomedical and mechanical engineering, an expert in digital forensics, a PhD in whatever these things are. These people are going to just light up the courtroom and light up Adam Lawley and whoever else might be asking questions on the Commonwealth side, because, I mean, I can't wait for Michael Morrissey. That's going to be an interesting one. So let's, instead of me going back and forth, I was trying to make it work, but they weren't in order. So here, this is Patrick Haggerty. Haggerty tows cars for Diamond Towing, which brought Karen Reed's vehicle from her parents' house in Dighton to the Canton Police Department. Audio recording has him stating that her taillight was not shattered, as Michael Proctor claimed it was in his report. So there's no images of the taillight in evidence from the state police or from Canton, even though they took it to Canton, even though they were supposed to be recused. They took the car to the Canton Sallyport, but Canton was supposed to be recused on the case, but that's where they took it. And Trooper Michael Proctor and others may have done something with the taillight. Just saying. All right, so next, Stephen Ridge, Boston police officer, and Herberto Hernandez, also Boston police officer. So remember, I pointed out we've got police officers from Boston on the defense list. Saying that would be interesting because they don't have, the Commonwealth doesn't have any Boston. They had a bunch of Canton, but that was it. All right, so in Massachusetts State Police. So these two seasoned police officers here from Boston worked on the fugitive unit with Brian Albert. Albert does not have many friends or supporters in the Boston Police Department, and sources we spoke with tell us that he assaulted a fellow officer named Herberto or Eddie Hernandez at a Christmas party. They could testify to Albert's violent tendencies, which can be used as a way to introduce the third-party culprit theory. Brilliant. Brilliant. Ridge was pictured in this photo with Brian Albert in the Herald. Oh, okay, so that's Ridge. The other, Stephen Ridge. So they are going to possibly be talking about or testifying to Brian Albert's violent and aggressive nature. So that's Brian Albert here, and that was Stephen Ridge, one of the witnesses on the defense list. And this must be Herberto or Eddie. Next, we got the Lapalito brothers. We already went through all of their information, but I cannot wait to see what they have to say about Michael Link, because holy hell, they got some stories to tell. All right, so in 2002, Chris Albert was listed in a lawsuit filed by Mark Lapalito against Canton police officer Michael Link, also one of the lead detectives. He took it upon himself to go back to the house multiple times and interview the family and friends. All right, so Mark Lapolito alleged that Lank had bitten him, wrongly charged, and targeted him. Chris Albert approached Lank outside of a bar called Centerfields, which I found out Centerfields is actually now the Waterfall Bar and Grill. So they've been doing this for years. The Alberts just drinking and getting rowdy and causing trouble. And I don't know why they have so much. How do they have so much power in this town? I don't understand. It is definitely a good old boy town, and there are people that rub each other's backs, I guess. I don't know. Or scratch each other, whatever it is. All right, so Chris Albert approached Lank outside of a bar called Centerfield and told Lank that he had just gotten into a fight at the bar with Lapolito. Lank then got into a fight with Lapolito and his brother Alfredo and allegedly bit one of them before detaining him, despite being off duty and telling him he was going to ruin his life. When the Lapolito brothers tried to file a complaint, they were charged with assault and battery on a police officer, but put on trial and acquitted. They endured years of harassment after the fact. The prosecutor in this case was furious that he had been lied to by the police, and the Lapolito brothers ended up successfully suing the town. Their testimony will show that jurors who conflicted and dishonest, how conflicted, I think that's supposed to say. Their testimony will show jurors how conflicted and dishonest Michael Lank is. Lank was the officer Jennifer McCabe personally called at 8:38 a.m. to tell him that she had just remembered that Karen had said, could I have hit him? While driving in the car to 34 Fairview Road, he was also the only Canton officer who went inside 34 Fairview Road, but elected not to search the house or take pictures of Brian Albert. So Michael Lank, best buds with the Alberts. He's off duty that day, gets called over there at 8:30 in the morning, and he gets called over there earlier than that, but then he gets called back to go over there because Jen forgot to tell him that Karen Reed said that. And this is coming from a woman who I don't trust. All right, Mike Rushmore from Thompson Station, Tennessee. Rushmore is a Canton transplant whose sources tell us received a text message from Michael Proctor that the FBI found during their investigation, which reportedly called Karen Reed a cunt. Yikes. All right. So there's that. Ashley Bell from Canton. Ashley was not a witness to anything, but she was visited and harassed by Massachusetts State Police detectives Yuri Buchanan and Ryan Tully at her home. They also asked to look at her surveillance video footage, despite not being on the path that Karen would have taken to get home from 34 Fairview Road. Then we got Thomas Beatty and Aaron Beatty. If you remember in the timeline episode that I did, while Karen and Jen McCabe were off driving around looking for John, words are escaping me, Jen McCabe kept calling this Thomas Beatty, and there was no answer. Finally, they got an answer. They talked for like a minute or a few seconds, and then that was it. So who is this Tom Beatty? Tom Beatty is a Canton resident whose daughter was friends with Colin Albert. His daughter received a phone call from Colin at 12:33 a.m. the night John O'Keefe had his life ended. So 12:33 a.m., which is roughly close to the time that John's getting to the house about. So everyone says that Colin wasn't in the house. But if he got a call, he made a call at that time of night, we would have cell phone information to put him there so that we know he was lying about where he was. So if he made a call at 12:33, he definitely had a ping going on, and his phone pinged from 34 Fairview, guaranteed. So Tom Beatty, okay, his daughter friends with Colin Albert. When she called him back the next day to ask him what he wanted, Colin said, "Never mind." Thomas. Sorry, I spelled that wrong. Thomas thought it was strange because kids that age hardly ever call each other, which is true. They always text one another. Over the summer, Chris Albert may have committed felony witness intimidation by approaching Beatty and asked him to retract his statements about his phone call from Colin so that Chris could sue Turtle Boy. Let me read that again. Over the summer, Chris Albert may have committed felony witness intimidation by approaching Beatty and asking him to retract his statements about the phone call from Colin so that Chris could sue Turtle Boy. Aaron was reportedly threatened by Jennifer McCabe and a townie named Jill Harrison Thomas, who reportedly told the 17-year-old that she needed to stop telling people about Colin's 12:33 phone call in the most graphic way possible. Instead of opening your mouth, why don't you stick a you know what in it instead? She's classy. Now this Megan Mariani from New York, New York. Ooh. She is a 2020 producer who was threatened and harassed by Denise and Bob Galvin and Jim Harris outside. I don't know who those people are, but they must be in cahoots with the McAlberts. That was outside C.F. McCarthy's, which was the first bar that John was at. So this woman, there were people who, 2020 came by to work on this because, it's been attracting a lot of media sensation lately, and apparently you can't even try to report on it because the McAlberts will make your life a living hell. Now up next is Courtney Proctor. Courtney and Jill Daniels are essential to the conspiracy because they tie the Albert and Proctor families together. A lot of the communication between the McAlberts and Proctors went through her, including Julie Albert's offer to pay Michael Lank a thank you gift on the day that he arrested Karen. Yep. So Julie Albert offered Michael Proctor a thank you gift on the very same day that Karen got arrested. Julie is Colin Albert's mother. So why is she thanking Michael Proctor for arresting Karen Reed? Oh, so her son doesn't go to jail for it because he's probably the one that actually caused it. And because everyone's so hell-bent on making sure we all know that Colin wasn't in the house when there's evidence that says he was. All right, so Michael Morrissey is going to be crazy if he gets called as a witness. It's unheard of for a defense team to call the district attorney prosecuting their client to the stand. But nothing about this case is normal, including Meatball Morrissey's ridiculous August 25th press release in which he lied by saying that Michael Proctor didn't know any of the witnesses. We know that. He lied. And this is the final one. All right, so John O'Keefe Sr., like I said, John O'Keefe Sr. has potentially flipped sides. This is the wildest name on the list. There have been unconfirmed rumors that Mr. O'Keefe has doubts about Karen Reed's guilt and even requested to sit on her side of the courtroom. He has missed several court dates as well and was reportedly close to Karen. If the Commonwealth plan is to paint Karen as a villain, then imagine how powerful testimony from Mr. O'Keefe would be saying the opposite. We will see if the rumors are bunk or have truth behind them in the coming weeks. Thank you, Turtle Boy, for giving us a nice rundown of who a lot of these people are and what they might be testifying to. So, okay. Oh, okay, good. I don't know why that went like that. All right, so we're done with the witness list. We've gone through pretty much everybody that we know, or, that I know, and then I can give you any information on. So next, we're going to talk about the defense's motion regarding the jury view obstruction. So you might have heard about this. The defense recently just filed a motion because the fact that Karen, the jury wouldn't be able to see, some of the jury wouldn't be able to see the witnesses as they would be on the stand. So I'm actually gonna here, I'm going to show you a picture. This is a picture of that is David Yannetti sitting in the witness stand, and that is, I think that's the furthest view back for one of the jurors, and that would be their view. So they don't see the witness's face. They can see Karen's table, just barely. But you have to be able to see the witness's face. So he actually gave a couple of views. So this one was the furthest, and then like other views, and then you're like just side by side, parallel. His face is parallel. You're just seeing his profile. So that's not enough. You need to be able to look at these witnesses as a juror and decide if they're credible or not. So it is a constitutional right to confront, to have face-to-face confrontation, whatever it is called. Hold on, I'll get to it in a second. All right, so we're going to read through the defendant Karen Reed's motion to enforce her constitutional right for face-to-face confrontation. So now comes the defendant Karen Reed and respectfully moves this honorable court to enforce her constitutional right to face-to-face confrontation by ensuring that all members of the jury can observe the faces of witnesses who testify against her at trial. As grounds for this motion, Ms. Reed states that the courtroom seating arrangements as presently situated would violate Ms. Reed's constitutional rights to confrontation because numerous members of the jury will be unable to observe the faces of the witnesses who testify against her at trial as required by the 6th and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution and Article 12 of the Massachusetts Declaration of Rights. All right, so what is the argument? The 6th and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution and Article 12 of the Massachusetts Declaration of Rights guarantee a defendant the right to face-to-face confrontation of any witness who testifies against her at trial. So number one, underlying the confrontation guarantee is the concept that a witness is more likely to testify truthfully if required to do so under oath in a court of law and in the presence of an accused and a trier of fact. I doubt it. People still lie, but I get what they're saying. All right, so as long held by the Supreme Judicial Court of one of the primary reasons our Constitution requires face-to-face confrontation is that it allows the jury to observe the demeanor of the witness in order to assess credibility. Like I said, you have to be able to determine if this witness on the stand is telling the truth or not, and you have to see their face in order to do that. As the Supreme Judicial Court has explained, in order for the defendant to be able to argue a witness's demeanor to the jury to the extent that it sheds light on credibility, the defendant must also be able to observe the demeanor of the witnesses. What does that say? The language has been construed literally as requiring not only that the defendant be given an opportunity to observe the faces of the witnesses testifying against him, but also that the testifying witnesses give his testimony to the accused's face. All right. Here I am. All right. Thus, a defendant's right to to confrontation is violated if either the defendant or members of the jury are unable to observe the demeanor of a witness. The precise reason this type of face-to-face confrontation is required is because of widely held belief that recollection, veracity, and communication are influenced by face-to-face challenge. It's true, and you pick up on a lot of subtleties that you don't get just by audio. If you're looking at someone's face and they're saying something, you can... Every single one of us has the ability, like, innately, you kind of know if someone's being untruthful. You just have to listen to your intuition. But you can pick up on those things because someone might be fidgety, or you might notice things that about their demeanor that are different because they're lying. All right, so anyways, that's the jury. The precise reason this type of face-to-face confrontation is required is because of a widely held belief that recollection, veracity, and communication are influenced by challenge. Did I read all of this? All right, so inter alia, if a witness is sitting face-to-face with a defendant but refuses to make eye contact, jurors observing this likely will take it into consideration when assessing credibility. That's a great example. A violation of the defendant's constitutional right to confrontation is reversible error. So if Judge Cannoni does not grant this motion, then it is like an automatic appeal, automatic reversal, and they'll just bring it back to the lower courts, unfortunately. All right, so the seating arrangements proposed by the court clearly violate Ms. Reed's constitutional right to face-to-face confrontation. Unless the court rearranges the jury box as requested by the defense, at least 6 of the jurors will only be able to see the back of the witness's head while they testify at trial. Thus, at least 6 members of the jury will be utterly unable to assess the demeanor and credibility of the witnesses that are testifying. The solution initially proposed by the Commonwealth was to force the witnesses to turn away from the defendant to address the jury. The solution from the Commonwealth was to force the witnesses to turn away from the defendant to face the jury. That's not okay. That's not acceptable and creates a separate yet equally problematic constitutional issue that by denying Ms. Reed herself the constitutional right to face-to-face confrontation, rather than forcing the witness to face Ms. Reed and allowing all members of the jury to observe the testimony. Let me read that again. Rather than forcing the witnesses to face Ms. Reed and allowing all members of the jury to observe the testimony, the witness will effectively be able to choose whether to face Ms. Reed or face only the jurors, avoiding the obligation of face-to-face confrontation altogether. Furthermore, the fact that at certain angles some members of the jury may be able to see part of the profile of the witness's face if of no import. As explained by the Supreme Judicial Court in Commonwealth versus Amaral, all arguments about whether the angles permitted a sufficient view of the testifying child's eyes and lips miss the point. The witness must give his testimony to the accused's face. As attached hereto, as Exhibit A, the current seating arrangement in this court denies Ms. Reed her constitutional right to face-to-face confrontation by forcing 6 members of the jury to stare at the back of witnesses' heads while they testify. I agree, this is not okay, not acceptable. Ms. Reed has already proposed an alternative seating arrangement which will allow both Ms. Reed and all members of the jury the ability to observe the witnesses who testify at trial. Any minor inconvenience of rearranging the chairs such that all members of the jury can actually see the witnesses as they testify is not only eminently reasonable, it is constitutionally required. For the foregoing reasons, Ms. Reed respectfully requests that the court effectuate her constitutional right to face-to-face confrontation by ensuring all members of the jury can meaningfully observe the witnesses who testify against her at trial. Signed by David Ionetti. And the the attachments that he had multiple pictures saying like seat 1, 2, 3. These are all the views. So he did, a picture from each view. And there's a lot, that's 6 people just looking at the back of someone's head. You can't tell anything from that, right? I mean, I wouldn't, if I was a juror, I would want to see the people on the stand too. All right, so we have gone through everything on my end that I wanted. All right, so, oh wait, nope. Before we do that, I did have a link that we can get rid of that one. That talks about, what am I going to say? So the buffer zone. That's the buffer zone. We're not there yet. This is a little bit, a segment, from Boston 10. And they talk a little bit about the jury selection process. So here we go.
Given the publicity and the media surrounding it, I actually think 4 on the first day was pretty good.
There have been worries about picking jurors and getting an impartial jury. It's certainly nothing like the one in New York City involving former President Trump, but Karen Reed's trial in Dedham is getting plenty of attention. Even so, 12 jurors have been selected so far. Takeaway number 1, the selection process seems to be working, and a jury should be in place next week.
I'm here, number 1, protecting my First Amendment rights. I'm here supporting Karen Reed, and I'm looking for justice for John O'Keefe.
The first day of the trial attracted dozens of Reed supporters, all of them kept back by a 200-foot buffer zone, which the state's highest court has been asked to review. During these initial days, the number of supporters seems to be less each day, all of them obeying the court-ordered restrictions. Takeaway number...
They're not less each day. What is he talking about? Since when is that? There have been the same number of people every day going out there. But, okay.
Number 2, initial worries about people outside the courtroom influencing the trial seem to be unfounded so far.
Karen Reed is, the defendant in this case, and she's entitled to a fair and impartial jury, and they should hear all of the evidence.
Judge Beverly Cannoni has told jurors the trial will be lengthy, and both sides have identified more than 160 potential witnesses. The prosecution is still waiting for answers about admitting important blood and DNA evidence. And while Reed's attorneys have been allowed to present a third-party culprit defense, there will be restrictions. Takeaway number 3, will the 6 to 8 week timeline actually hold up?
A lot of that will depend on whether the government is successful in getting all of their key evidence in. And if not, then we have a much shorter trial.
In a new development, the defense wants jury seating changed, saying their clients' constitutional rights to confront witnesses face-to-face is jeopardized because of poor sight lines. They claim at least 6 jurors will only see the back of a witness's head. NBC 10 legal analyst Michael Coyne says Reed's attorneys have a point.
There are some problems if the jurors cannot see the witness as the witness is undergoing the direct cross-examination.
Things to look forward to next week, the end of jury selection and the beginning of testimony. In the newsroom, John Maroney.
All right, so there was a little bit more about Proctor here. Oh, here's more about the jury selection. We don't care about that. That lady was kind of annoying. I thought there was stuff about Proctor I wanted to show you, but I don't know where it was.
There is a conflict.
Oh, yeah.
In the early days of the
Perfect timing.
With witnesses in this case, and he didn't disclose it. Trooper Michael Proctor continues his assignment with the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, but he's under a microscope now that an internal investigation is underway. In the early days of the investigation, State Trooper Michael Proctor was responsible for interviewing witnesses, especially the people inside the home of Boston police officer Brian Albert at 34 Fairview Road in Canton. John O'Keefe's body was found in the snow outside this address. In pretrial motions, the defense argued Trooper Proctor did not interview Brian Albert until 6 months after O'Keefe's death in July, even though he's the home's owner, and was hosting after-hour guests on the night of January 28th. The defense also accuses Trooper Proctor of not disclosing his personal relationship.
Can you guys tell any of these people apart? They all have these bald heads. They all look the same to me. Sorry.
With the Alberts.
That's the same Michael Proctor who's also years-long close family friends with the Alberts. The Proctors have called the Alberts their, quote, second family. And to that point, now we have benefit of some hindsight. and that's the federal investigation. We've been saying since September 16th, 2022, in lengthy motions that we filed before this court and filed with the Commonwealth, there is a conflict. You're not investigating the conflict. That conflict was never described to the grand jurors.
The specifics of the federal investigation are unknown, but we know Trooper Proctor is the subject of a state police internal investigation, and the NBC 10 investigators have learned that internal review is related to the Karen Reed case. Todd McGee is joining the conversation here.
All right, that's good. We're going to stop there. So that kind of gives us a little bit more of an update on the jury and selection and the investigation. I don't know if they're going to allow talk about the investigation into Proctor's behavior during this investigation. I believe it should be brought into court, but we will see how Judge Cannoni rules on that, because I don't think she's ruled on that yet, or if she has, we don't know. All right. Doggo needs blankets. Hold on one second. Here, come here. I know, it's nap time. I can't get it over her. Here. She's a butt. She just won't, like, she was put on this earth to teach me patience, this little one. That's the truth. She takes her sweet ass time doing everything. All right. So we're going to go back. I'm going to show you we're going to talk a little bit. You know what? I'm just going to close this. The next thing we're going to talk about is the traction that's going on with the motion to to get rid of the buffer zone, I guess you could say. I wasn't really sure how to word that, but yeah. So to get rid of the buffer zone, to fight the buffer zone, let's watch a clip about that. So this is going to be, this was on the Glarer show. Very crooked. Let me fix the screen. This all is annoying. Sorry. It's just a lot of fun. Always making sure everything fits right. Okay. So here we've got, it was the Glarer show. So I'm showing a portion of the Glarer show just to show you about, give you an update about the buffer zone. So Mark Randazza, who's on the screen down here, he just popped into their live stream. So the Glarer was interviewing Paul Cristoforo and Tracy and Dana, who they have a show called Resistance to Silence on YouTube, and they talk about, you know, they do shows and inform people about when they're doing their standouts and showing their support for Karen Reed. So they have a channel themselves, but they came onto the Glarer show just to talk about, you know, everything that was going on, and especially the buffer zone. And out of nowhere pops in Mark Randazza, who is the attorney who is fighting this particular buffer zone that Cannoni issued. And he's ready to go to war because he hates anybody that infringes on the First Amendment. He's very, very passionate about this. So we're going to listen to a little bit about what he has to say about this. We're getting a little traction on this motion. So,
oh man, Mark Randazza.
You're not gonna get in trouble, are you, Mark?
I probably am. Yeah, as usual. All right. You just sent Paul sent the link. He said, "Hey, if you're bored," so I click it.
I love that lamp, by the way, that he has in the background there. That's a cool lamp.
Next thing I know, here I am on camera.
Well, I'm Will. My channel's called The Glarer. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, so he didn't even know who Will was. He just gets a link sent to him saying, come on this live stream.
Know of me or not, but I talk about the Karen Reed case quite a bit.
Yeah, I see the billboards outside here in Muskegon, where I am right now.
But no, the thing I'm most passionate about is, these people who have been protesting, that have been getting together and protesting outside this courthouse. And one of the biggest things that infuriated me the most about this situation was the buffer zone that was implemented here, which I can't imagine.
We are how that's then.
Yeah. So, and I wanted to, and I'm glad I get to talk to you because I got to listen to you on Turtle Boy before, I think. What was the moment that made you just be totally on fire for taking on this situation that's happening outside of the Karen Reed case?
Well, I mean, look, whenever there's a First Amendment issue, I mean, this is what I do. I don't really have another purpose as a lawyer except to do First Amendment cases. So, of course, I know Aiden, and I've been somewhat following the case, but not really intensely. I don't want to say I don't care because people got mad at me for saying it that way.
I already told you didn't care.
Yeah,
and I've heard you say that.
And to him, it's like, I don't care what the content is. I don't care what it is that you want to shout from the rooftops. I'm just going to protect whatever it is you want to shout. Is basically what his stance on the First Amendment. You could be screaming that you're a purple people eating monster or whatever, and that is your right. Is your with a First Amendment right to do that and to talk, about that. And so he's just really passionate.
Yeah, I was mostly referring to, because obviously the people that you're representing in two separate cases are it spawned from the Karen Reed thing. So I wasn't asking your opinion on the Karen Reed case. I just wanted to know how.
But when I hear that the Commonwealth was like, first when they went after Aiden, that somewhat got to me, because I said, wait a minute, it's not what a government does when it's acting legitimately. I mean,
right.
It's like you don't.
Exactly. You don't go and silence the person that's reporting on you just because you don't like what they're saying. Just go and arrest them. But that's what they did in this case. And it's insane that it still hasn't stopped. These people are still in power.
Even if I worked for the Commonwealth and somebody said, this journalist is doing this thing and it is illegal. Like, let's just, for the sake of argument, say what Aiden was doing was actually illegal.
Right.
Even then, I would pull everybody into a meeting and say, listen, guys, this is going to look extremely, extremely bad if what we have is somebody who's critical of the government and we go out and we charge him with a crime.
Right. I was thinking that in theory when it happened. I mean, Mark, I did 5 different live streams when Turtle Boy was first charged. I did 5 different live streams going over each charge, checking the timestamps and the video titles to see if what they said was what he said. Yeah. And they even, if they didn't absolutely twist it, they flat out lied.
Well, I have found that the longer I practice law, the more jaded I get about the government being fast and loose with the facts in front of courts, and courts not doing much about it.
Yep.
Right. It seems to be getting.
And people don't understand that it is often the prosecution that is lying and making crap up in their filings, and everybody has this idea that the defense is always wrong. They're the defense because they did it, and obviously, they're a criminal, and just people think that way, and people are so critical of defense attorneys, which I think are like amazing people. As I'm, learning more and more about this stuff, people go into bat for their clients. To change case law is amazing, and it's really interesting to see.
Getting worse. It's all the courts always. When people talk about the branches of government being separate, well, I mean, look at a tree. How far are those branches separate? The same person signs their paychecks. So I'm always. Let's put it in a positive spin. Let's look at it from the bright side. sometimes you find courts that will look at the government and say, you're not allowed to lie and you're not allowed to violate the Constitution. And those are inspiring times.
Right.
So I'm kind of hoping that happens in Aiden's case. But then when I saw, what they were doing to these protesters, first the Canton 9, I mean, these are people standing at an intersection and the police are saying, if you
I believe he represents the Canton 9 also.
can see a sign protesting about the case, that's witness intimidation. And look, not gonna bullshit anybody. I mean, I'm getting my ass kicked in every one of these cases. I mean,
Right.
in the federal case so far, Judge Casper said that's all just fine, and we're going to allow that. And in this case, Judge Cannon, didn't want people protesting outside. The single justice of the Supreme Court said that that's just fine. But then today we had a development. I don't know if you guys have discussed it, but the full Massachusetts Supreme Court asked for expedited briefing, late in the day on a Friday before a holiday weekend. So that's at least
So they want more information. They are interested enough in this case, the Massachusetts Supreme Court, interested enough in this case to ask them to provide a briefing to explain why they should hear their case. Pretty much. That's amazing. That's awesome. Because it doesn't always happen that way. Most times it doesn't. But when it comes to the freedom of speech and this stupid buffer zone, it's an emergency. Let's get in there, get this buffer zone quashed, and let's move on with our lives. This is all just noise.
To me, a good sign that they're at least going to make a decision. While
Can you? I'm sorry, Mark. Can you explain for us layman's what exactly that means? What happened today as far as the Supreme Court?
Well, we'll go to the beginning, and then it'll kind of explain it in context. Is first, we tried to get Judge Cannoni to listen to us because she's about to make a decision that affects the protesters, that affects the public. Well, the public ought to be able to say something about that. I mean, I can't just say I'm going to take away your rights without you having due process, right? But when it involves, for example, when a court shuts a courtroom down and reporters want to cover it, reporters are allowed to intervene. That's happened. But here, she said, these people can't intervene because they're nobody to me. And she didn't have no point, because there isn't actually a rule of criminal procedure that says you can. There's no rule that says you can't either. But there is a court decision letting the Globe do it when they're going to close the courtroom. So then we immediately went and we appealed. So we did a two-prong appeal. I call them the Gang of Four. So when the Gang of Four there, we appealed to the Massachusetts Appeals Court, single justice, and then we had this group that Nick Rocco was sort of organizing of the Freedom to Protest Coalition. That is a group of people that just want to be able to protest. Right. I think it's got over 500 members now. They appealed to the single justice of the Massachusetts Supreme Court. So these courts have, when you want to appeal and you want to do it fast, they have one judge that's on duty. So you appeal to the single justice, and then that judge makes a decision. The appeals court said, next window, please. I kind of expected.
I saw that tweet.
Yeah. And I knew one of the courts would do that. Sometimes when you're a little pessimistic, you're like, yeah, no matter which one we appeal to, they're going to say you should have gone to the other window.
And I remember hearing you say that you expected that to happen prior to it happening.
I did.
So,
But if you go to both windows and then they go next window, please, you're like, yeah, I'm right here. So here we are. The single justice then looked at the appeal, and the grounds for the appeal were, one, it violates the First Amendment. And then there's subcategories to that. But two, I don't know where a court gets the right to say what happens outside of its house.
Exactly.
Judge Cannoni, she is God in her courtroom. Right. If you walk into her courtroom and she says, you can't be in here unless you're dressed as the Hamburglar, well, you know what? She gets to do that. But, as you leave her courtroom, then I'd like to know, I don't even know what her authority is in the hallway. Because, look, in the courtroom, I can't just sit there and talk, take pictures, do whatever. I got to act according to her rules, even if her rules are a little weird. That's her domain, and I respect that. But out in the hallway, imagine if we're out in the hallway and I'm just talking to you about whatever. She can't be like, hey, get those people in the hallway to shut up, unless we're disturbing it. That's another story. If we're out there yelling, that's another story. But now we get out. Let's go out onto the courthouse steps. What's her jurisdiction out there? I don't know. But then you step off those steps onto the sidewalk. That's a traditional public forum. She has no jurisdiction out there as far as I'm concerned.
Right. And
the single justice just didn't even address that. Just went right past it. And hey, maybe she does have that authority. So when you go to the Supreme Court of the state or the Supreme Court of the United States, you are at the court of last resort. Like when it comes to Massachusetts, the SJC could just say, yeah, a judge can do this. And then that's that. But we're going to find that out. I have not found another case that where someone challenged it. Now, I know Judge Cannone did this years ago in another case. I wasn't around, so nobody was there to do anything about it. But I would really like to find out, just what authority a judge has to do that. Then you got to narrowly tailor it. It's like, if you're going to fuck with the First Amendment, you got to fuck with it a little bit and as little as you can. So if she wants to say you can't get a fair trial without some kind of a protest zone limitation, I mean, I get it. You don't want to have like jurors every day having to go through a gauntlet to get in there. But there's also no reason why you can't do it another way. You always got to look at what's the lightest way I can touch these First Amendment rights.
Right. It's a touchy thing, man. I remember hearing you say it's the First Amendment. It's first for a reason, because it's the most. I mean, what do we have if we don't have our freedom of speech? What do we have?
Right. I mean, look, America is not a place. It's not an ethnicity, right? It's an idea. It's an idea. And without that idea, that's the central idea, is this is something we get to do, even when it's offensive, even when it criticizes the government. And, when I look at that order,
especially when it criticizes the government, that is the speech that needs to be protected the most, because that's when the government will come at you.
To me, more like an order to shield the government from criticism than shield the jury from anything.
That's what I was stating earlier, is how am I supposed to not think that she is favoring the prosecution? And I know this is not what you're thinking about, but how am I not supposed to think that she's favoring the prosecution in the Karen Reed case when she makes decisions like this for the reasons that you just stated? Because all you did was confirm my thoughts on the whole thing, which was just like, well, Clever, please go lay down. Sorry, my dog is like.
I think he adds to the environment more than takes away.
Yeah, he does, but it's hard to focus on what I'm trying to say. Clever, go lay down. Please. Thank you. Please, go lay down. Or sit there. That's fine, too. What are you going to do? I love you very much.
He's got his homework comments.
Right. Yeah. So, but the whole thing that really bothered me about this was Beverly Cannone seems to be showing so much favoritism towards the prosecution. But what bothers me when I use my eyes, as I like to say, the prosecution, Michael Morrissey, just seems so blatantly like brazen about these motions that he files. Like he has this entitlement, this air of entitlement that I mean, because I've never heard of anybody having the audacity to file a motion like that.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
It's strange, but it's also there's two things when a court rules that I think a judge should consider. Not just is it proper, but does it look proper? The courts only have authority because we respect them, right? Ultimately, at some point, a judge could issue an order, the police refuse to enforce it. Well, then what happens, right? Then things just break down. Courts should really, and then courts set examples. And I'm not saying that she's favoring the prosecution, because I don't know, right? I'm not looking at any other orders in this case. I really don't want to, because I don't want to color my impression of this.
Right.
But when the government asks for something that seems unconstitutional, and she doesn't really go through all the steps that she should, it at least creates the impression that something's wrong here.
Right.
And with so many people watching this, I would have hoped she'd have more reverence for what's happening, more reverence for the Constitution, to say, look, I'm going to do the hard work step by step. Step one, this is where I derive the authority from. Never answered that question. Just
right.
And in the single justice, I was very disappointed to see, even if he had come up with some ridiculous reason that she had that authority, at least address the question. Because if that judge can do that, if that judge can say 200 feet from the courthouse, which seems like a small amount, and the single justice did say that. It's a tiny amount. I mean, we can walk 200 feet in 90 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But why not 250 feet? Why not 350 feet?
Exactly.
Why not 200 miles?
It's the precedence that it says.
Yeah, why doesn't she have the authority to have a statewide ban on protest? Hey, you have an alternate place you can protest. It's called New Hampshire? I mean, it doesn't. I at least want to know that, and we should know that as citizens of the Commonwealth. that we have a court that is looking at its separation of powers properly. And then when she looked at the tailoring, to say, when you tailor it, to say, well, the government wanted 500 feet, I'm going to give them 200 feet. But what about the alternate ideas? Right. I mean, if it was about stopping, if it was about, we got our own dog here, so if it was about putting limitations so that the jury wasn't tainted. I mean, if it's a concern about if it's an issue of if it was something, anytime I've seen a prosecution where there's a concern about how the jury might be tainted by something the government does, every time they're like, oh, we can just give them a jury instruction. I mean, as silly as that may be sometimes, but when it comes down to this, we can't tell the jury, hey, don't consider the signs outside. I mean, frankly, I think the dumbest box of rocks juror you could find, like the absolute worst juror, is going to know, I don't consider signs outside the courthouse.
That's exactly what I was saying before you came up here.
Yeah. Like, how stupid do they think jurors are? I mean, really?
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, that's why, how am I not supposed to think that this is some sort of, that this is dirty? How am I not supposed to think that?
Right, and that's the problem, right?
It's insulting to the people that go there to report for jury duty to think that Judge Canody doesn't trust them enough to make a decision on their own without looking at the protesters.
That's the problem. It has created an air of illegitimacy to me. This is part of what I put in my brief to Judge Canony, was that, look, even you need to make sure that this doesn't create this air of illegitimacy.
Right.
I don't want that. I want to know when Karen, if Karen Reed goes to jail, don't you guys all want to know, like, it was done right?
Right.
Somebody, and if she walks free, don't you want to know it was done right? I mean, I think if anybody, I know there's so many people who are passionately on the free Karen Reed side of things, but would any of you, and that probably includes all of you, but would any of you not change your mind in a moment's notice if you saw evidence that helped you think that way?
I can honestly say that the reason why I feel the way that I do about the Karen Reed case is because of how her rights seem to have been violated. Yeah. They didn't conduct this right. I follow true crime cases because I believe in justice. And John O'Keefe, in my opinion, was robbed of justice due to the fact that the investigation was conducted in a nefarious manner. And there is evidence on top of evidence on top of evidence to indicate this. Now, that is exactly what I've always said, is if the prosecution tomorrow came out with some bombshell that's just like, I mean, video footage of Karen Reed running John O'Keefe over, I'd be like, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel good about this because I feel that the defense has done everything that they can to do it properly. So like, I see that coming from you. I see that coming.
And it looks like the Commonwealth is doing everything they can to be secretive and stingy and whatever. Like, they're not giving us the information, and they're secretive about what is really going on.
From Bradle, like, okay, we smell something, and so the way to approach this is to do it legit. Because if it doesn't work out this way, we're going to take it one step higher. And then when we take it one step higher, we get to prove that we did this absolutely legit.
Yeah. I mean, nobody wants a murderer to go free.
Right.
Right. If she did it, man, throw her in that
totally
cell. Right. And let it be a horrible punishment for her. But, it's. I mean, I had a case in front of a judge in Nevada one time where one of the parties was trying to close the courtroom, and he issued this great order that I cite all the time, where he says, we have a free and open court system. We have the most fair justice system in the world. And what better way to show that than to tell the people, come and see for yourself. Right? That courtroom needs to be open. Now, the courtroom's open, but man, what better way to show the world that what's going on in that courthouse is fair and open, and the government has no fear and the courts have no fear, than to have people out there protesting. Now, look, 13A and 13B still exist, right? If you're out there intimidating a witness, you're out there trying to negatively influence that trial, you can be arrested. And I don't have a problem with that. But also, those 500 people who want to protest, now remember, no demonstrations, no signs, right? The van out there with a goddamn NBC logo on it, that looks like a sign to me.
Right.
So in advertising for NBC, okay, that's all right. But there are people who want to protest in the Freedom to Protest Coalition who don't care about this trial at all. There's some people who want to protest about the Dobbs decision about abortion. There's a couple of people who we had everybody sign up, give us your name, how to get in touch with you, and what you want to protest about. And
right. Michael Morrissey's office created an absolutely separate issue. That's on him. That's on him.
There are people who want to protest the lack of a right to protest. There are some people who want to hold up Black Lives Matter signs. Because look, when you go to a football game, the guy holding up the John 3:16 sign, why do you think he's doing that? Because he knows he's going to get on camera and he cares more about spreading the gospel than he does about the end of the football game. Why wouldn't there be people out there who say, hey, there are cameras that are going to be here, and I can be out there to get my Black Lives Matter idea out there?
Absolutely.
I mean, there should be a circus. That's what fucking America's about. And that's, and it's appropriate that this, and I'm really full of optimism that when the SJC says at 4:45 p.m., the weekend before, it's not a holiday for everybody, but I'm going to a Passover thing. There's like weekend before a holiday, day before a holiday weekend, that we want your briefing on Tuesday by noon, and then the state has to respond by the next day. That means they want to move fast enough to get a decision in that will matter. Because there's a way the SJC could have dealt with this if they just wanted to fuck us. And you know what that is? Wait. Courts do this all the time. You file for an emergency motion, right? The court looks at it and goes, I don't like who's filing this, so fuck them. And then they just sit there.
I always fucking suspected that.
Court, I'm not naming names of courts, but I tell you what, I know you're out there and I see you doing it, Judge. They just sit there, they jam their thumb up their ass and they say, I'm not going to do anything for 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Motherfuckers, I knew it.
I had a case where I was trying to get the press access to a city.
This guy's great. I really just wanted his segment on the buffer zone, but he goes off in tangents. But I mean, it's all related and it's really interesting.
Right, and the judge, we had this emergency meeting, and the judge just sits on it until the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving, and then issues his order fucking us. Like, it's like, now what are you going to do? Like, as if that would have mattered to me. I'm out in the middle of the desert in California writing a brief on my phone because I'm not letting that happen. But, they do it all the time. The fact that they did the exact opposite here, I don't look at it as they fucked up my weekend. I look at it as somebody there said, this matters.
Yeah.
Now, they still may rule against us. They might have a damn good reason to say. The court has
but you got somebody's attention, and that's all. That's
they care. Yes.
Right now, what it looks like to me, correct me if I'm wrong, is that everything is going to plan. That's it. If you can't count your chickens before they're hatched. You just want to be heard by the right people right now. That's where you're at. It's a win for now.
If the court even says, look, this is okay, and this can be done, fine. Now we all know the new rules. But these are not the rules that exist now. I mean, I've certainly done cases where I go in there and say, Your Honor, there's no rule here. And the judge is like, and the higher court says, okay, fine, fuck you. There's the rule. You don't like it? Now you enshrined it in law, Randazza. I mean, I lost the case 0-7 at the Florida Supreme Court about, it doesn't matter, it was about a jurisdiction issue. Hey, those losses are helpful too, because like 3 cases after that, I had 3 cases since then where my opposing party made the argument that I lost 0-7 at the Florida Supreme Court. And I stand up and I go, Your Honor, I love his argument. It's the best argument ever. This is exactly how you should rule. And that's exactly the argument I made at the Florida Supreme Court. But they ruled against me 0-7. Please erase my shame and rule. And the judge is like, okay, nice theatrics. Yeah, you win. Hey guys, if you got a wrap up question, but I am actually supposed to be at a wedding in like 8 minutes, and I'm in my greasy pole T-shirt from Gloucester, and my lady friend here is definitely going to get mad at me if I
just give us a quick final thought on how we should be moving forward as far as spreading information, things of that nature.
I would say first, say a prayer to St. Jude, because it seems like a hopeless cause. Let's see if he can intercede. Second, let's look at it as a good omen that this ruling to get expedited ruling came in on America's birthday.
Yeah.
419, 1775. Everybody else, those assholes out there from the other 49 colonies don't understand. Today's the birthday. I
don't subscribe much to coincidence, so it's a beautiful thing.
I think
I'll take it as a blessing.
I think Lexington and Concord's ghosts were like, we're not putting up with this.
I love it. I love it.
And look, it's just respect with the, I say we got to respect the courts. We got to hope that what they're going to do is the right thing. But I don't care. I would just love to have one of these people, like one time people who are opposed to each other on the fundamental issue. of the case, right? The key issue is the Karen Reed case.
Right.
But people who want to
focus on the First Amendment.
Right. Like they don't get, you got to understand that if you shut people down who want to protest about something you don't like, you're shutting your own protest rights down next time. You can't just have a shifting narrative of what the First Amendment is. It's a neutral principle, and if we can keep it intact, then we all live in a free country. Other than that, we live in two wolves and a sheep voting for who's going to get eaten for dinner.
Two very simple sides to the coin of free speech. A, you get to say whatever you want. B, you're going to hear things you don't like.
Yeah.
So it's just the way it is, and you can't have one without the other. Mark, thank you so much for
Let me give one last second plug here to something. The
Please.
Center for American Liberty,
right on.
libertycenter.org. They contributed a lot of help to this case. Those guys are awesome. They are out there doing a lot of good work nationwide. I would hope people would go and check out their website. Toss them a $1 donation if you can. Just make your name known. And let's all appreciate the ACLU of Massachusetts for coming in and caring about this too. All right. I give the ACLU a lot of shit these days, but I'm not giving people shit where they deserve credit. They deserve credit. They cared about this case as well. So
awesome.
Liberty Center, ACLU of Massachusetts, Freedom to Protest Coalition, and all of you, let's all get on the bandwagon here. First Amendment,
Yeah, I love it. Thank you, Mark, so much.
Thanks a lot. You guys take care.
All right. That's all I wanted to share with you guys. I thought his interview was pretty good. He's always interesting whenever he's on one of these shows. He's got a lot of things to say. He's a lawyer. He is currently an working lawyer who fights for the First Amendment rights of all of us. So we should all give him some appreciation. All right. Yeah. So I don't know. What do you guys think in the comments below? Let me know. I know we kind of went through a lot of stuff. So we went through jury selection. We went through, not jury selection, witness lists. Then we went through jury seating and how they view the seats. And now we're talking about the, obviously the buffer zone. And it seems to me like it only made it easier, I guess, for people to have to come into the city in any direction, like, because they blocked off the street. So there's people on like all the different corners now. So you see a little bit of a smaller group, but it's like spread, there's more people everywhere. So I think it makes more of an impact, actually, the fact that there is this buffer zone. But it is still wrong, and they need to get rid of it, quash it, whatever, because like he says, if you start taking away someone's freedom of speech now, then the next time you want to say something, that freedom's going to be gone. So let's keep it neutral. Let's keep it neutral. I like that idea. You can say whatever you want, but you also have to know that you can hear things that you don't want to hear. And that's part of free speech. And it's how you react to it. How do you react to the things that you don't like? Do you go on a angry tirade on social media and calling people names and being rude? Because that ain't cool. You're just like a McAlbert then. But if you hear something, or something bothers you, and you react peacefully in a respectful manner, you can counter argue peacefully, respectfully, and do so, from a place where you're understanding, and I don't know, I don't know what I'm trying to say. You guys, I get it. You get it, right? Trying to get your message out, I think, yeah, I'm trying to get my message out. That's the whole reason why I started this channel, was because of Turtle Boy getting arrested, and it angered me a lot, because I don't like them silencing someone who is speaking out against them. It's frustrating situation going on there, but hopefully, they can resolve it. The Supreme Court of Massachusetts will take it, and hopefully they select that case and overturn it. That would be something. That would be a big FU to Bev if the Supreme Court overturns her Commonwealth, to not just Bev, but the Commonwealth itself. like saying, hey, you guys are really overreaching with your power and you guys got to quit it. That would send a great, big, giant message to the Commonwealth and to Bev. Like, hey, we're watching and you guys need to start playing by the rules a little bit more. That is the message that Beverly Cannoni needs. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please comment. Hit the like button. Let me know what you think about this case. Are you new to the Karen Read case? Are you just getting into it? Yeah, let me know. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care. Bye now. If you've been impacted by a true crime and would like your story told in your own words, or if you or someone you know has been wrongfully convicted or accused of a crime, please write to crimeincourtchannel@gmail.com and tell us your real true crime encounters. Thanks for watching.